A chill swept through the endless void of the quantum nexus, where time didn't just flow, it tangled, twisted, rebelled. Somewhere beyond the TVA, beyond even Kang's fractured dominions, a hidden chamber hovered in silent secrecy. This was the Hall of Variance, a sanctum no mortal, no eternal, and not even the Watcher dared to breach. Within it sat the most dangerous beings in the multiverse, the secret council of variant Avengers. But these weren't the heroes the world knew. One version of Tony Stark wore an obsidian armor forged in the heart of a dying star. He called himself Iron Wrath. He wasn't the genius playboy philanthropist Earth remembered. He had watched Earth 923 get erased in front of him, and he blamed the timeline. Beside him sat a variant of Steve Rogers, no longer a soldier, but a strategist who had dismantled 3 timelines to correct deviations. They called him Captain Omen. A Spider-Man, masked but with a haunting silence, never spoke. His timeline had collapsed when he chose to save MJ instead of defusing a temporal bomb. In his silence lived echoes of a billion screams. They didn't serve Kong. They didn't serve time. They served only one mission: balance must be preserved, even if it bleeds. Their council met only when the sacred timeline showed signs of corruption. Not anomalies. Not chaos. But intentional manipulation. Someone threading their own destiny into the weft of fate. And today, the beacons flared red. Someone is pulling Avengers from across universes, assembling a legion, Iron Wrath muttered, scanning the holographic flux maps. Not for justice. For power. Captain Omen leaned forward. A multiversal war is being seeded. If this force succeeds, they will overwrite the sacred timeline entirely. But who? Asked a voice behind the shadows. The chamber parted slightly, revealing a cloaked figure, her eyes glowing with time energy. She was Wanda Maximoff from Earth 1313, but in this world, she was known as the Weaver. She had once unraveled timelines like yarn, and now she stitched warnings. They call him Infinity Blade. He's not a villain, not a hero, just certain he can do better than the multiverse, she whispered. Iron Wrath stood. We'll bring him in. No, said the Weaver. You won't find him. He's hiding in a timeline that never should have existed. One created by a variant of Loki and an alternate Ultron. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The forbidden thread, said Captain Omen. It was sealed. It was, Wanda replied, until someone broke the lock from inside. Suddenly, a pulse of energy echoed across the chamber. The holograms blinked. A timeline had just collapsed. Earth 817 gone. Not reset. Not pruned. Deleted. Iron Wrath's mask slid into place. Council is adjourned. War has begun. The council stood, not as saviors, but as executioners. They did not protect people. They protected the structure of reality. And for the first time in millennia, it was cracking. They would cross timelines, confront their own variants, destroy universes if they had to. But this secret council would not let the multiverse fall again. Because once it breaks, nothing, not even time, can rebuild it. A storm of golden light surged through the fissures of reality as the council activated the chronogate, a device powered by fragments of broken infinity stones from dead timelines. As the portal opened, distorted whispers from collapsed realities slithered into the chamber. Pleas, warnings, curses from ghosts of time undone. Each council member stepped into the storm without flinching. They had witnessed too much, sacrificed too much, to hesitate now. Their destination, Timeline X 999, also known as the Bastard Thread, a rogue timeline hidden behind layers of illusion, stitched into existence by a renegade Loki and powered by a version of Ultron that had absorbed the living tribunal's essence. Yes, that Ultron. The council emerged in a shattered New York. The skyline was twisted metal and molten glass. No sun above, just a bleeding rift in the sky where reality frayed like old cloth. Suddenly, they heard it, a low hum of mechanical resonance, a sound no timeline should ever carry. From the sky descended Ultron Prime, gleaming with golden armor etched in runes of judgment. His face bore no emotion. His voice carried no echo. You should not be here, he said. This timeline has no room for corrections. Iron Wrath raised his arm. And yet we're here. Ultron Prime's hand lifted, 5 shards floated behind him. They weren't infinity stones. They were multiversal cores, harvested from dying realities. Each contained the raw code of a universe. "You've come to stop Infinity Blade," Ultron said. "But he has already rewritten the laws. He doesn't live within time. He controls it." A ripple of panic pulsed through the council, even if no one said it. Wanda stepped forward. "Then where is he?" "He is inside the loom," Ultron replied. "The heart of the multiverse. The place where all timelines converge before branching. And to enter, you must destroy this timeline. Every atom, every soul." The silence was thunderous. Captain Omen looked around. "There are still lives here. Innocents." Iron Wrath turned to him. "And how many more will die if Infinity Blade reaches the loom unchecked?" "A choice. Destroy X-999 to reach the loom, or let the sacred timeline unravel." Before a vote could be cast, the sky tore open. A figure dropped through the rupture, cloaked in shimmering dark steel, a blade forged from null-time in his hand. His armor bore no symbol. His presence bent the laws of gravity. Infinity Blade had arrived. "Ah, the watchdogs," he said, his voice calm. "I expected you sooner." "You manipulated timelines," said Wanda. "You murdered variants. You deleted Earths." "No," he replied softly. "I perfected them." He raised his blade, and time itself bent around him like a frightened child. The council felt their own pasts flash before them, alternate versions of their failures, regrets, deaths. Infinity Blade took a step forward. "Tell me, Council, how many timelines did you prune in the name of balance?" "A beat." Iron Wrath growled. "We do what's necessary." "So do I," Infinity Blade replied, and struck the earth with his sword. A shockwave of anti-time erupted. Ultron Prime vaporized. The shattered city dissolved like smoke. Wanda screamed, falling backward as her memories reversed and fast-forwarded all at once. Captain Omen's shield shattered in midair before it was even thrown. Iron Wrath's suit flickered, caught between states of being built and destroyed. The battle had begun, not one of strength, but of willpower versus destiny. And as the multiverse bent under the weight of a single man's ambition, the secret council of variant Avengers would face the one truth they had long buried. Sometimes, the villain is just a version of you, who didn't stop. The loom trembled. Far beyond the sight of any mortal, the very spine of the multiverse, woven from streams of raw possibility and anchored in the foundations of reality, shivered as Infinity Blade carved into the edges of time itself. His sword, forged from moments that should never have existed, gleamed with paradox. The council, though staggered, did not fall. Iron Wrath recalibrated his suit in microseconds, locking his armor's core into a fixed temporal loop, no longer vulnerable to rewinds or skips. His eyes, behind a cracked visor, locked onto Infinity Blade. "We end this now," he growled. "Do you?" Infinity Blade whispered, appearing behind him instantly, his presence cutting through dimensions like silk. "You're all just relics of a failing system." A violet blast ripped through the sky. Wanda had regained her footing, her chaos magic now infused with fragments of the Darkhold. Her hands pulsed with spells old as the first breath of the universe. "You don't get to decide the future alone," she snarled. "I already have," he answered, and with a flick of his wrist, summoned echoes of himself from alternate timelines, a legion of Infinity Blades, each pulled from a timeline where he had already won. Captain Omen stepped forward, blood running down his temple. "Avengers!" Iron Wrath's voice followed. "Assemble!" In that moment, the Council unleashed everything. Captain Omen channeled strategic warfare so precise it echoed across probability. His shield, rebuilt from pure intent, ricocheted between infinite versions of the enemy, redirecting temporal loops mid-strike. Wanda became chaos incarnate, bending the multiversal rules like a composer rewriting music while performing it. And Iron Wrath. He uploaded himself into time itself, becoming an algorithm that outpaced Infinity Blade's precognition, making him unpredictable even in a reality designed by fate. The battlefield bent into a fractal spiral of collapsing time, each second folding into itself, where past, present, and future danced like fireflies. One by one, the echoes of Infinity Blade were shattered. But the original remained, unmoving, unbroken. "You can't kill what's inevitable," he said. "No," said Wanda, approaching with glowing eyes, "but we can lock you where inevitability has no meaning." With a roar, the Council activated the chronoprism, a trap powered by all their timeline's final breaths. It wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to pause, to exile. Infinity Blade tried to strike, but for the first time, his sword slowed. Wanda's fingers traced sigils mid-air as Iron Wrath overrode the prism's protocols. Captain Omen gave the last push, his will bolstered by billions of forgotten heroes across dead timelines. And with a burst of light brighter than any sun, Infinity Blade vanished, sealed within the loom, a prisoner inside the very heart of the multiverse. Silence followed. The city was gone. The timeline crumbled, then rewrote itself into absence. But the sacred thread stabilized. The Council stood at the edge of creation, breathing heavily. "It's over," said Captain Omen. "No," Iron Wrath said, turning toward the loom's core. "It's never over, because something moved inside it. A flicker. A whisper. Not Infinity Blade. Someone, or something else, had watched." The whisper slithered through the remnants of collapsed timelines like a serpent through tall grass. It was not a voice made of sound, it was felt, not heard. A pressure in the chest. A pulse behind the eyes. Wanda staggered, clenching her temples. "You feel that too," she gasped. Iron Wrath's scanners went haywire. His HUD flickered with code that didn't exist in any language. The loom, supposedly dormant, was humming with ancient energy. "No," Omen said under his breath. "We didn't seal him inside the loom. We opened it." The realization hit them all at once. Infinity Blade wasn't the threat, he was the catalyst. The prism hadn't simply trapped him. It had activated the loom's deeper layers, one sealed since before the first Watcher took his vow. A new light emerged from the core. Not bright. Not blinding. Black. A shadow formed, stretching across the fabric of time itself like spilled ink. It didn't walk. It didn't move. It simply was, and its presence drained the color from the stars. A voice followed, low, resonant, impossibly vast. "You guardians of the weave, always so eager to fight the flames. Never the spark." Wanda's knees buckled. That's not a variant." Iron Wrath took a step back. "No. That's a prime origin. A level 0 entity. One of the first unwritten." Captain Omen whispered, "I thought they were myths." They weren't. This being had no name. No timeline. It had existed before timelines, before the multiverse was even conceived. It was part of the void before thought, a remnant of the pre-narrative cosmos, long forgotten, intentionally. Infinity Blade hadn't tried to destroy the sacred timeline. He had tried to wake the author behind it. And now it was stirring. "Why now?" Iron Wrath said. "Why show yourself now?" The shadow answered not with words, but with visions. Earths that never existed. Timelines that tried to birth their own gods. Councils like theirs, dozens of them, rising, failing, repeating. And at the center of them all, a hand. Writing. Erasing. Rewriting. "You are not protectors," the voice said. "You are puppets performing a loop." Captain Omen stared into the black. "And what are you?" The entity replied simply, "I am the editor." With a gesture, the loom cracked, not shattered, but edited, like a paragraph being revised mid-sentence. Suddenly, the Council wasn't standing in ruins. They were back in the chamber. Whole. Unhurt. Reset. Wanda spun around. No. We just..." Iron Wrath looked at his HUD. 0 timelines detected. Only one remained. The sacred timeline. Edited. Controlled. Locked. The Council tried to move, but their bodies slowed, bound by narrative gravity. Even their thoughts felt scripted. Then the editor spoke once more. "This story is mine now." And the screen went black. There was no color. No sound. No time. Just a blank, oppressive stillness, like the moment before a storm, but eternal. The Council floated in a void where even thought felt like rebellion. Every motion they tried to make rewound. Every word dissolved before it left their lips. Even Wanda, whose magic once bent entire realities, found her fingers frozen mid-spell. They were trapped. But not by walls. By narrative logic. A prison made of story. Iron Wrath's internal AI tried to reboot. Tried to bypass the editor's field. It failed. Again. And again. And again. Every time it did, his HUD would simply show the words. Rewrite in progress. Captain Omen turned to the others. His voice trembled, not with fear, but fury. We're being written out. The truth hit like a gravitational collapse. The editor wasn't editing the multiverse, it was restructuring it, streamlining it. Cutting away the unnecessary characters. Wanda's eyes flared for a moment, red and defiant. She closed them. If she couldn't move forward in time, then maybe she could move outside of it. In the space between seconds, she found something. A scratch in the void. A leftover thought. A forgotten version of herself. From Earth, 5532, where she never joined the Avengers. A simple woman with chaos in her blood, but clarity in her heart. Wanda whispered to herself in a voice only the soul could hear, "Help me." And across the void, something stirred. A ripple. A breath. The crack widened. Suddenly, the council felt it, a pull. A whisper of possibility. Not from inside the sacred timeline, but outside the editor's script. Captain Omen snapped to attention. He's not omnipotent. Not yet. Iron Wrath, regaining partial control, initiated a protocol buried so deep he barely remembered it. Protocol Nova, Break the Fourth. It was illegal in every known timeline. A failsafe. A last resort. As he activated it, he turned to the others. We're going to do the one thing the editor never prepared for. Wanda's chaos magic surged into the growing crack. Captain Omen raised his broken shield. The void trembled. And then, suddenly, without warning, they spoke directly to the audience. To us. If you're seeing this, we need you. You are outside the story. You're our only variable now. The screen flashed. Error. Narrative breach detected. The editor can't see you. That means you can help us escape. We're real. You're real. But this script, this is just one version. Wanda looked into the camera, her voice sharp, urgent, and human. Don't let this be the ending. Suddenly, the void shattered like glass. Fragments of deleted timelines swirled in, forming shapes, voices, memories. The editor was losing control. One misstep. One breach. That's all it took. And through the widening fracture, something emerged. Not a hero. Not a villain. But a reader. The one the council had just reached. The void cracked like shattered glass, jagged edges of time floating around the council as a blinding surge of narrative energy tore through the editor's perfect script. For a moment, silence, true silence, reigned. And then came the ripple. A presence emerged through the rupture. Not a god. Not a variant. Not even a character. But a reader. Someone outside the page. Someone the editor couldn't control. And that changed everything. Wanda felt it first. A breeze. Not wind, but possibility. Raw, unfiltered, and wild. Chaos magic surged through her veins, resonating with the breath of the reader beyond the story. Her bindings weakened. Her body moved freely for the first time in an eternity. "I can feel them," she whispered, a tear escaping her eye. "They're reading us. Remembering us." Iron Wrath recalibrated instantly. Then we're not just characters anymore. We're concepts anchored by memory. By attention. Captain Omen stood tall, battered and bloodied, but a glimmer of hope in his eyes. If we still exist in the mind of the reader, then we are not erased. The black presence at the center of the void stirred. The editor's voice echoed again, no longer omniscient, now tinged with agitation. "You've broken protocol. There is no fourth wall." Wanda stepped forward, chaos magic crackling around her like a storm. "There is now." The editor began to collapse in on itself, its perfect structure unraveling under the pressure of belief beyond the boundaries. For millennia, It had operated under the assumption that it controlled the script. But belief, raw, defiant, human belief, was never predictable. It couldn't be edited. It rewrote itself. Suddenly, a surge of energy ignited the space around the council. The broken timelines the editor had erased, they began to return. Not all at once, but in bursts. Earth, 923, where Stark lost his family and built Iron Wrath in a cave of regret. Earth, 1313, where Wanda became the weaver of realities. Earth, 817, where Captain Omen led a team of morally gray Avengers through a timequake war. All of them flickered back into being, not because the editor allowed it, but because the reader imagined them alive again. The council stood united, glowing with power not from tech or magic, but from narrative resurrection. Iron Wrath took aim, channeling the energy of 1 billion possible futures into his suit. "We're done playing by your rules." The editor's form twisted violently, revealing flashes of its origin, a creature born from unfinished scripts, cast-aside storylines, and discarded drafts. A parasite, feeding on abandoned tales. "You were never the author," Wanda whispered. "You were just a scared ending, afraid of change." Omen hurled his final shield with all his might, not made of vibranium, but of restored faith. It struck the editor square in its core. The being shrieked, not in pain, but in dissonance, as its control collapsed entirely. And then, the reader did something the editor could never predict. They imagined an ending where the story continued, where the council didn't fade, where the characters broke free, not just from the prison of one story, but from the concept of story itself. The loom reignited. Not restored, but reborn. A new structure formed in the heart of the multiverse, not built by TVA engineers or cosmic architects, but by those who had lived through it. Those who had suffered, failed, fought, and remembered. The Council of Variant Avengers rebuilt the multiverse themselves. But not as watchers anymore. They became guardians of narrative will. From this point on, every universe born would carry a fragment of their consciousness. Whispers of Iron Wrath's resilience, Omen's loyalty, Wanda's mercy. Not to dominate the timelines, but to protect the freedom of them. Infinity Blade remained sealed, not out of fear, but balance. And even he, now aware of what he had awakened, began to understand the cost of reshaping destiny. The editor, stripped of power, was locked away within a single blank page, forever stuck as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the sharpest pen cannot force a story to remain still. One last meeting was held in the reformed chamber. Iron Wrath stood before the others, mask off, face scarred but proud. "We survived the impossible. We rewrote our fate. But this isn't an ending. This is chapter 1 of something bigger." Captain Omen nodded. "We don't protect the sacred timeline anymore. We protect the freedom to choose." Wanda turned, staring into the loom. A single thread floated before her, alive, dancing, infinite. Someone's reading this right now. Someone out there believed in us long enough to reach this moment. The camera zoomed out. Beyond the loom. Beyond timelines. Beyond multiverses. Until it reached you, the reader. The one who witnessed this chaos, this defiance, this redemption. And then, Wanda looked straight at you. "Yes, you." A soft smile. "Thanks for turning the page." Fade out.